Good afternoon. I'm Shelley Jones, Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement at Missouri State University. The Alumni Association is the organization through which Missouri State students continue their connection with MSU when they leave the university. The Alumni Association is a non-dues paying organization, so all of our alums are viewed as members. So if you're new to our series, the BearTalks webinars, they're monthly professional development sessions, now available in a virtual format. So how today's webinar will work. We can't see or hear you. We'll have you use the Q&A feature for questions, and then we'll be doing those questions throughout the webinar. The session is being recorded, and all of our registrants will receive a follow-up email that will be including with the link, and I should be getting that out to you tomorrow. We also have some other great resources that our panelists are going to be sharing with you, so please keep an eye out for that great email tomorrow. Unfortunately, due to time limitations, most likely we will not get to all of our questions today. So March is Women's History Month, and today we're spotlighting 3 Missouri State alumna who are paving paths, breaking barriers, and making an impact. They are women who rock. Today we have 3 amazing women with us, and then in order of their presentation, we have Helen Pruitt, Alice Bodner, and Jess Ryan. So how we're going to format today's session is we're going to visit with each of the panelists individually before moving on to our general session where we'll bring them all together. So let's go ahead and have Helen Pruitt go ahead and share her video. There she is, and unmute. Hi, Helen.
Hi, how are you, Shelley?
Good, good. Thank you for being here. So I'll tell you a little bit about Helen. Retired Army Colonel Helen Pruitt. She graduated from Missouri State, SMS at that time, in December of 1975 with a degree in physical education. She spent 4 years here playing basketball under the first Lady Bears basketball coach, Reba Sims. Her experience as a Lady Bear proved instrumental during her 25-year career in the U.S. Army. And Helen is joining us today from what I guess is sunny Florida. Is that correct?
Absolutely. 77 degrees and sunny.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. So let's go ahead and get started. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up and why you decided to attend Missouri State.
I'm from a small farming community in the southwestern part of Missouri. Very small. I think the population was 222 people in our entire city where I grew up. But the reason I ended up at Missouri State was because there were 5 kids in my family and I was the second one, and my older sister was already at Missouri State, and my parents decided it would be much better for them if they had both of their kids in one school. So that's how I ended up there, and my brother right behind me, he ended up at Missouri State also. So it was a family thing, and it was really for convenience for my family and for my parents.
Well, we're glad you came here. We're very glad. So after you graduated, you went back to Fairgrove to coach and teach, correct?
Correct. I went to Fairgrove and I taught for 4 years, taught and coached basketball, softball, and track and field. And did it for 4 years.
So then after a few years there, that's when you came back and worked at Missouri State, is that?
Yeah, that's close. After
okay.
Well, after I completed 4 years of teaching, I just knew that was not my passion. You know, I thought it was going to be, but it just wasn't. And so I resigned from my position, and I really looked around and did a couple other jobs, and finally ended up to be the equipment manager for the women's athletic department at Missouri State.
Okay. Okay. And then was it at 27? Were you 27 when you decided to enter the military?
Yes, I was 27, and you know, it was kind of odd how it happened. I had a job. I was working at Missouri State, and a friend of mine and I, neither one of us had any military experience at all. And we were at my house one night and we had probably had a little bit too much alcohol. And we just decided that, hey, you know, we need to get out of Springfield. We need to go do something. We need to see the world. And a mutual friend of ours had been in the military and we're like, hey, you know, she likes the military. It seems to be good for her. Let's go join the military. And the next day I went to the recruiting station and I started the process for joining the Army.
Well, that was a big life decision made
No,
after a little few drinks.
I know it was.
Well, clearly it was a good decision though, because you spent 25 years there and really had a very wonderful, successful career.
Right.
So you weren't, when you were at Missouri State or SMS, you weren't involved in ROTC. Was that, did they allow women back then?
They, when I was a student there, I did not know that they allowed women in ROTC. I believe they started allowing women in ROTC in 1972. I know in 1976, they started allowing women in the military academies at West Point and the Naval Academy and Air Force Academy. And I believe that that's when they started offering ROTC scholarships to women. But it just wasn't anywhere on my checklist. I didn't even know it was an option.
Wow. Wow. So you go to the recruiter and tell us what happens.
Well, the first recruiter I went to, he was a naval recruiter because I thought, my favorite color is blue, so maybe I should be in the Navy. And so this is my thought process, it's totally like a knucklehead. But the naval recruiter said, hey, you're too old. It's 27 years old. And I thought, oh, that's too bad. So I went to the Air Force and I thought, Air Force, they told me the same thing, you're too old. So I went to the Army recruiter because I was persistent. I wasn't going to give up. And the Army recruiter said, hey, you're too old, but we have an age waiver. Would you like to apply for an age waiver? And I said, heck yeah, let's do it. And so that's what happened.
Wow. So you had mentioned, I think in the past that when you met with the recruiter and he had suggested that you were qualified to be an officer,
Right.
how did he convince you to go that direction?
Well, at the time, I just thought he was being a nice guy saying, hey, do you want to be an officer? Do you want to be enlisted? And honestly, I had no clue what that meant. And he showed me a pay chart of the officers and a pay chart of the enlisted. And I looked at it and I said, well, I want that one because it paid me money. And so, I didn't know what that meant. I found out later after being in the Army for a while, he probably had part of his mission was to get an officer, and I was it for him for that particular month. But it just worked out well for me. And, it's funny how things turn out, but it turned out well for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. So off you go to officer candidate school. So at Fort Benning, Georgia, which I know Fort Benning is kind of known as the Benning School for Boys. So what was that like? And was it 1981 that you were in one of the first classes there to accept women?
I was. It was difficult because most of the people that were there in my both classmates and the entire cadre were all men, and they had been in the Army for a while. And so they didn't take kindly to women. They knew that we were like an experiment. In my class at officer candidate school, there were about 300 of us that started, and of that 366 were women. And the women stood out because the men, when we were in formation, the men had heads that were shaved and the women had a little bit of hair. So it was really obvious who the women were when we were standing in formation. So we were a constant target. I mean, they wanted us to quit, and they made things hard on us. And, I remember the first run that I did in formation at Fort Benning, And the good thing is SMS got me ready to be fit throughout my entire life. And so I was pretty fit when I went in the Army. And so the first, after we first got there, they decided to take us on a run. And back in those days, we ran in combat boots. And they started the run out, and I thought, wow, this is really fast. And we just kept speeding up and speeding up. And by the end of it, we had run 2 miles in 13 minutes. And I was one of maybe 2 or 3 women that made it through without dropping out. Now, there were a lot of guys that didn't make it, but it just put a target on the women that dropped out, that they were weak, they weren't ready for the training. And I was blessed that I was in pretty good shape before I started. So that's really how my career at Fort Benning started out. It was the constant test to see if I had what it took to make it through the school.
Mhm. And I think you had said at one point that they like didn't even have a women's bathroom set up. Is that right?
They didn't.
What?
No, they didn't. And the main place where we took our classes, they didn't have a women's restroom. So what they did was one of the cadre would go stand in front of one of the men's bathrooms, and the women could go to the bathroom, and then we would go back to class, and that was how it was. And I'm sure Fort Benning has changed by now, but
Right.
this was the very early days, and it was pretty ugly.
Oh my. Yes, I think hopefully the military's come a bit since that time. Yes.
Yeah.
So you retired from the military after 25 years as a colonel, and you held many positions. I suspect you moved many times.
I did.
Yeah.
But Shelley, I really liked the moving part, because it was a new opportunity and to see different things, and I really enjoyed it. It was kind of like a little adventure. It wasn't always easy, and sometimes I lived in substandard housing, but we figured it out.
Oh, wonderful. And during that time frame, which of the jobs were your most favorite and or challenging, and why?
Well, working in the Pentagon it was just wonderful. I loved it. It was hard, it was demanding, it was long hours, but everybody worked that way. And it was so fun because you never knew what was going to happen. You never knew from one day to the next who you were going to bump into. One of the first days that I was in the Pentagon, I'm sitting at my desk, and I happened to have a desk by the window, and I see all these guys dressed in black suits hanging around the window that I was sitting by. And I thought, wow, I wonder what those guys are doing. Well, pretty soon I see a presidential motorcade pull up, and it was President Clinton. And he walked in the door that was, maybe 100 feet from where my office was. And the Secret Service was just around there. So, I mean, those kind of things, you just never know what was going to happen. It was, like I said, it was exciting to work there.
Oh, goodness. And I think you had shared in the past that your day started pretty early when you were working at the Pentagon, correct?
It did. There was a job that I had that I was the human resources person for general officers in the Army. And it was a great job, but it was so demanding. And we were required to be at our desks at 6 o'clock in the morning every day. And we were there until 6 o'clock at night. And so we had to do our physical training somewhere other than that 6 to 6 time frame. So I would get up at 3:15 in the mornings, and I would take my dog for a quick walk and get in my car and leave to drive to the Pentagon about 3:45, get to the Pentagon about 4:15, start my run, and run somewhere between 5 and 7 miles a day. And then I would grab a shower, and I would be at my desk by usually 5:30 in the morning. So
Wow.
it was a long day, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it looks like we're going to go ahead and move on to Alice, but we will be back in the group session with you. So thanks for taking a little bit of time and sharing some about your backgrounds.
All right,
Okay, so let's go ahead and have Alice hop on her video. There we go. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Shelley.
So Alice Bodner, she graduated in 1996 with a degree in chemistry. She's currently the co-owner, COO, and general counsel of Atlas Guides, a Denver-based company that creates smartphone navigational guides for long-distance hiking and biking around the world. So you're joining us from Colorado. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you, and welcome to my kitchen.
Well, I like it. So where did you grow up, and what brought you to Missouri State?
Okay, well, so I grew up in Bentonville and Fayetteville, Arkansas. I grew up in Bentonville first on a dairy farm, and then my parents moved to Fayetteville when I was around 11. And so as you can probably imagine, I'm a big Razorback fan, and a lot of my my classmates went to the U of A, but I got this amazing presidential scholarship from Missouri State. So, and I kind of wanted to get away, so I was thrilled to go up to Missouri State, which was SMS at the time, of course.
And the presidential scholarship, you want to maybe share a little bit about what that was?
Sure, it's this amazing scholarship that paid for every dime of my education.
Wow.
I still worked while I was there, but yes, it paid for room, board, food, even my books. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. And all my closest, dearest friends today were fellow presidential scholars. So it was a great program.
Wow. Well, you must be pretty sharp to have received something like that. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
So over your lifetime, you've had multiple careers. You've been reinvented yourself several times. Following your degree in chemistry, you worked at a pharmaceutical company and then decided, I'll go to law school. Then you worked in LA in environmental law. And then you decided, I think I want to hike 2,600 miles with my husband. And now I'm going to learn to code and write an Android app for long distance hiking and biking trails around the world. So my goodness, that is a lot to unpack. So of all of those reinventions, was there a particular career that you were most proud of, and why?
Yeah, so I think all of those things I did led up to where I am now, where I am a co-owner of my own business that I own with my husband and our business partner, Ryan Lynn. And I absolutely love what I'm doing now. The legal part, you know, I'm our general counsel. So, and I taught myself to code, so I don't really code much anymore, but I learned a lot of that when I was in the pharmaceutical industry. You know, law school taught me how to think, how to problem solve. Being a chemist also taught me how to problem solve. So it's all culminated in what I'm doing now. And kind of like what Helen said, when she was at the Pentagon, she never knew what any day would bring, which is what made it so exciting. And that's what I love about being a business owner is I never know what's going to happen. You know, we have a public facing product. You never know what the customers are going to do next, what they're going to ask for, what crazy thing they're going to say next. So yeah, it's challenging and fun, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
And you get to work in your kitchen, right?
Yeah. I usually work in an office, but the internet tends to randomly drop. So I thought the kitchen was a safer place.
Well, there you go. We love it. So a lot of people in their career, they may seek out that stability and that safety and security when it comes to a career path, but that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case with you. So what made you take that leap each time? Were you ever afraid? And if so, you know, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so I mean, the first time I took the career leap, I was working in Kalamazoo, Michigan for a large pharmaceutical company, Pharmacia, which was then purchased by Pfizer. And they shut down our entire division. About 10,000 jobs were just lost overnight. And they did hire a lot of those people at other sites. And my husband, Paul, and I could have gotten jobs probably with them or with another big company. But we decided, we had both been taking entrepreneurship classes. I had been thinking about law school. So it just seemed like a good opportunity to take that leap. And it was so scary. I just remember thinking I would pay anything to know what I'm going to be doing in 5 years. But I just have this kind of blind faith in education and hard work, I guess. So I made the leap.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's talk about the app that you have, that you co-own. How did you get into the app business? How does your app work? And what is it called again?
So it's called Gut Hook Guides, which is kind of a strange word, gut hook. So long distance hikers, they have what's called a trail name. Often when you're hiking a long trail, you don't even know people's real names. My name is Holstein. And so one of our founders, Ryan, his trail name is Gut Hook. And so that's how our app got its name. Our company name is Atlas Guides though. But what it is, it's for people who hike really long distance trails like the Pacific Crest Trail or the Appalachian Trail, or closer to Missouri, like Ozark Highlands Trail. We have guides for all those. And so if you're out in the woods, say for a week or so before you are resupplying in towns, you need to know, where to get your water, where trail junctions are, if you get to a junction, do I turn left or right? And so our app has all that information on there. So you open it up, look, see where you are on the map, and you know where to go.
Wonderful. And I think you have, I understand 91 different guides that you have on your app that have been mapped out from all over the world. So it's not just here in the United States. What are some of the other countries that you all have apps for, and like your shortest and longest trails that they'll find on that guide?
Okay, yeah, so our shortest and longwoods are in the United States. The shortest one is the Mount Whitney Trail in California. It's 12 miles. And the longest one would be the Continental Divide Trail, which is around 3,100 miles. It's a Mexico to Canada trail that goes through the Rocky region. But we also have apps in New Zealand, Australia, Jordan, Israel, United Kingdom. We have some of the Camino routes in Spain. So yeah, really all over them. Oh, and we recently added one in Chile, the Torres del Paine.
That's wonderful. So how does the information on the app get updated?
Well, we originally, we hiked the trail ourselves. My husband actually hiked it in 2010, and then we hiked it together again in 2012, and he collected the original data set. And then our partner, Ryan, he collected the data for the Appalachian Trail. So those were our first two apps. And then they just really started catching on. And I realized, hey, we could work with trail organizations and they could send us the data, and we sell it for them, because this was really when apps were just really taking off. Everybody wants an app. And so it was kind of a win-win in that we process the data for them, create an app for them, but they send us the data. So we're not out walking all the time as much as we like to.
Would like to. So 2,600 miles you hiked. That just blows me away. I think I was talking to you before, and I'm thinking about who do I want to spend that much time with? But this was 5 months, the Pacific Crest Trail from Mexico to Canada. So what was that experience like? Was that kind of the first time you had ever hiked some kind of distance like that? And did you grow personally from that? I mean, you were working during that time, for your app, but anything you want to share about that experience?
Yeah, sure. So my husband first did it in 1997, which is when I first heard about long distance hiking. It wasn't really a thing back then. In fact, if you've heard of the book Wild, Cheryl Stray did it in 1996. So when we did that, a lot of people, they'll finish the hike and they just say, I'd like to just turn around and walk back to Mexico. I had so much fun. Well, I wasn't really one of those people. I was glad to be done. It was tough for me. But when you walk for 12 hours a day for 5 months, you have a lot of time to think. And so I thought about a lot of things. At that point, I had left the difficult law world, and what was I going to do next? I had a lot of time to think about that. I'd recently had my father had died the year before, and that was real traumatic. So I had a lot of time to think about that, and just really, it sounds trite, but kind of got in touch with nature and myself. And when I was done with that hike, I didn't really want stuff anymore. it grounded me, and it was a great experience, even though I'm not one of those crazy hiker types, which are our customers, and I love our customers, and I'm glad that other people want to hike all the time.
Oh, that's wonderful. All righty. Well, we are going to go ahead and move on to Jess. Thank you so much for sharing about that. I will never go hike 2,600 miles, so I will live through you. So
Okay.
thank you. All righty. So Jess is on. Jessica Ryan, she graduated in 2006 with a degree in musical theater. She lives in New York and is the CEO of Broadway Unlocked, and altogether now digital fundraising platforms, which raise millions of dollars for arts organizations and a whole lot of other people. So welcome, Jess. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks, Shelley. I just want to like keep listening.
I
cannot
know, aren't
believe-
they wonderful? Can
Yes,
we
it's
just go like
amazing.
2 hours? I think we need to make
I
this 2
know.
hours.
I know.
There's so much great stuff here.
Yeah.
So tell me, Jess, where you grew up and why did you decide to attend Missouri State or SMS at that time?
Yep. Yeah. We're all SMSers originally. That took a while to get over and to try to like reroute my brain to mouth highway there. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. So, just around the corner. I actually I have grandparents in the Fayetteville, Bentonville area. So I was down there a lot as a kid as well. And I went to Missouri State because I attended Fine Arts Academy in college. I think I was the second class of Fine Arts Academy. And when I was prepping to go to college, I knew I wanted to go to school for theater, and I was definitely going to go to Northwestern or NYU. That was sort of the plan. But I just decided because of Fine Arts Academy, I was like, let me just apply to Missouri State SMS. And I too received the presidential scholarship and thought to myself, well, I guess I better do that. And I frequently say it's like the smartest accidental decision I ever made in my entire life because, like Alice said, being able to leave school with no debt really actually opened the doorway for my entire career. And I didn't even know how, what that would do for me at the time.
Wow. Wow. Well, congratulations to you too. Again, you are a sharp
Thanks.
cookie to get that full ride scholarship. So that's fabulous. So we had talked before and you talked about growing up as a competitive dancer. And then when you were here at the university, you juggled these large course loads and you did all these productions and did all these things. So what did your day look like structure wise? And how did those long hours prepare you for what you're doing now?
For my whole career. Yeah, it's true. I think like theaters, going to school for theater, being a professor of theater even is quite a different experience from a lot of the other, pockets of the university, in that my day tended to start super early, like most people's, like 8 a.m. for gen eds and stuff like that. But then I because I'm such a curious person, I got a BFA in musical theater, which is like already triple majoring in dance, acting, and singing. But I then wanted to take all the like normal straight acting theater classes as well. So I was like taking 23, 24, 25 hours semester. So I would go to class all the way through, 4 or 5 p.m., run back to the dorm or my apartment, take a nap, and then we went back to the theater all night, right? Because we're rehearsing shows. And so they were crazy long days, but like you said, that became my whole life. Like that never stops happening, moving to New York and becoming an actor and a director and now the CEO of a very quickly growing startup. It's just the same thing, except like less naps, I guess.
Right. That's right. And actually that kind of segues into the next question where we're talking about sleep. And I'm assuming you get a little bit of that, but so as a CEO of a startup, what keeps you up at night besides the long hours and working? What is on your mind
long. I mean, it is it's like elements, funny enough, I think like a lot of elements of both women's stories, that we've just heard from, like one is being a female leader of a startup that is doing an investment round. Like, I don't know if everybody listening knows these stats, but it's like, it went down this year. 2.3% of all venture capital goes to women-led startups. So like, it's really, really tough to be a female CEO in the technology space. And so like there's a lot of stuff like that. And then sort of to what Alice was talking about, just every day we say it's like building a plane while it's crashing in startup world, which is exactly how it feels every single day because we're growing too fast. And we started bootstrapped, which means all our own cash, right? Like, and the revenue that we generate. So like there's a limit to how fast you can hire people and grow. And there's all these, it's like putting a puzzle together. So that's a lot of what my cold sweats in the middle of the night are about.
So you have Broadway Unlocked and All Together Now. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is, what type of experience that is for folks who come onto that digital platform?
Yeah, totally. So Broadway Unlocked actually started, it was born almost 10 years ago. And it was actually born out of doing good, I think you mentioned, and giving back. I was raising money for survivors of violence with a lot of MSU alumni in New York City through a benefit concert, and sort of had this thought, like, I think more people would donate to this if we were able to invite people from around the world to be a part of the benefit concert instead of just the 120 people that are in the theater. And so we actually, at that time, created Broadway's first live streamed interactive concert that created this sort of loop between digital audiences and in-person audiences. And we kept at that. And that sort of, as Broadway Unlocked, over the years, kept pursuing all of these really cool sort of live digital pieces of content. And so when the pandemic hit, the phone started ringing because no one had ever done this, and we had been doing it for 10 years. And so that's how we got to today, which is that Broadway Unlocked is sort of like this innovation studio inside a bigger company called All Together Now. And we're a platform for live experiential performance in the digital space, which basically that's so fancy. It's like a fancy way of saying, like, when you go back in person, you'll have your live show, but after COVID and the pandemic, no one will ever stop. We'll always be digitally extending our shows. It's so valuable in terms of revenue, money's raised if you're a nonprofit. And so we provide a space that is like a theater, but on the internet, that feels exciting to be at as a digital audience member.
Wow. So is it just arts organizations that come to you and hire you to be their platform, or what other types of events have taken place through Broadway Unlocked?
Yeah. So we started, of course, like because Broadway Unlocked existed before All Together Now, just like solely in the art space. And that has quickly expanded because I think, nothing feels like being together in the theater, right? Or in any kind of live space around a performance, like nothing feels like that. And that is true across a whole bunch of industries. So now just this spring, we're doing shows with Missouri State, which is really exciting. Glimmer Glass Opera, the Philly Orchestra, the New York City Ballet, Little Kids Rock, which is an incredible organization, Maestra, which is female music directors in the musical theater. But then we do conferences for Columbia Business School. And we just did a 25 DJ like nightlife crazy 8-hour thing with a really cool company called What the Float. And we have done so many bonkers things, I think, across like 10 industries, healthcare, the luxury jewelry industry, which is my favorite random one. It's really exciting. I like, as a curious person, I love it because it's sort of like both women have said, nothing is ever dull, it just is always interesting.
Well, and one of the questions that just came in, which is my question every time I talk to you, is what drives you? I mean, this is off the rails, all of the different things that you are involved in. I don't know how many of you are there?
Yeah, I know. It's so true. Like my twerpy answer to that is sometimes I think, like, growing up, like you mentioned, in a competitive dance studio, going to dance, 6 hours a night at 5 days a week, like that is like that sense of discipline and all that is what drives me. But really, I think about 10 years ago, I was in Los Angeles because I split my time between the two cities in non-pandemic times. Someone asked me like what I really wanted to do. And I thought about it for a second, and I don't know, like it popped out of my mouth, and I said, I just want to be an engine of creativity. And I think that's really the answer, is like, I want to be able to create and put things into the world and enable other people to create, to tell stories, to make change, like every second of the day. And so that's, that I think is really what motors me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. Would you consider yourself a rule follower or the type of person who doesn't wait around for permission?
Here's the thing. I like straight up in high school, 4.6 GPA, followed all the rules. Please do not ask me to break any rules. I got very nervous, very tight, high strung about that. But over the years, I don't know what it is. I have become slowly and increasingly a person who loves the existence of rules and then is just out to break all of them, like every last one that I can possibly break. You know what I mean? I am not keen on sitting around and waiting for people to give me permission to do things. I never really have been, ever, I don't think, in my adult life. So that's me, but it served me well.
Well, I would think this, not waiting around for permission, I get the feeling like your organization would never have been built.
No.
Had you sat around waiting because the pandemic hadn't hit, there wasn't a really strong drive to build something in a virtual space. So, I mean, you had your plane built.
No, yeah.
You were waiting.
100%. The fancy way of saying this, right? Like in startup world is we were pre-revenue for 8 years. But what that really means is like no one cared. We made this crazy live streamed interactive concert almost 10 years before anybody thought we needed to do it. And we continued doing it. And it's had tons of famous people, raised tons of money. By all metrics, like someone should have paid attention to that and said, I think there's something here. But like no one thought it was like, everybody's like, oh, what's that weird thing Jess is doing? It's kind of cool, but like, I don't really get it. And if I had waited around for someone to, hand us the keys to the kingdom on that, yeah, I'd be done. I'd be doing something else today.
Wow. So the pandemic really worked in your favor, right?
Yeah, except for like one
way.
year of working in 750 square feet alone. I'll give that one away. That didn't work in my favor, but yes, everything else has been pretty serendipitous.
Oh, so one of the things that is so memorable about you is that you really like to hire and you like to work with a lot of our alums, and you really look for opportunities to provide exposure for them. Why is that so important to you?
I think that in the theater, we do not have a strong like mentorship component for most roles in the theater. And I think that's like some dorky stuff about scarcity and just like everyone's in competition with everyone. So it's very unlike a lot of other industries where mentorship, I feel like, is built into the educational process and then your professional life as you move forward. And so for me, like I didn't know any MSU alum when I moved to I knew like 2 when I moved to New York. And I was sitting my first professional job at Goodspeed Opera House, which is a very famous theater. And I was sitting in the costume shop being measured for a costume, and their costumer, John Rakucci, who's been there forever, who is a legend. He was like, oh, you're one of those SMS girls. You must know Matt Stokes and Greg Roderick. And I was like, yes. Yeah, I definitely know them. They're so great. And I thought to myself, like, I don't want anyone to ever end up in that situation again. Like if I can have anything to do with it. So like, I really love connecting MSU alumni. I love getting to come back to Tent Theater and direct and choreograph and act sometimes and getting to meet the younger students that way. I love getting emails from professors that say, you should meet this person and think about hiring them. They're stellar. And we do it all the time because it really matters. And that stuff is what helps your professional career, like move faster, harder, better, stronger, right? Than anything you could do on your own.
Oh, that's just wonderful. We one of the many things we love about you, Jess. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and bring everybody back on. We'll have everybody turn their cameras back on. We've had a few questions come in. So if my eyes go to the right, it's because it's on that screen. But then I also have some other things too. So first off, it's clear that you all are leaders. Did you receive formal training? And for those who want to be leaders, do you advise that they get formal training on how to lead? So maybe let's start with Helen on that one. Her answer may be a little different.
Well, yeah. Growing up in the Army, the leadership training was like a huge thing. It was huge. And I've had multiple classes in it, but I also had a lot of informal training by mentors to teach me about leadership. And I was really fortunate to work around those people that saw that I had some potential and that they wanted to foster me to move toward being a leader.
All right. And then how about Alice and Jess?
I wish I had had some training in leadership. It's really been self-taught. I was an employee for most of my career, but recently I am an employer now, so I've had to teach myself leadership, reading books, listening to podcasts. But I definitely encourage people to get formal training in it.
I'm in the same boat. I know, I mean, informal, like Helen was saying, like through producing and directing, for nearly my entire life, you certainly learn how to steer a ship that way. But yeah, I listen to podcasts, read articles like crazy and books and all of that kind of stuff.
Well, speaking about books and podcasts and these leadership resources, that's one of the things that we are going to be including in your follow-up email that you'll receive. All of our panelists have provided us with some great resources, and we are going to pass those on to you. So we hope that you enjoy those. So research shows that self-doubt and imposter syndrome permeate the workplace, and women are particularly likely to experience that. I know Alice and Jess, you have kind of shared a little bit with me about you experiencing that. So you want to share a little bit about that and maybe any tips or experiences on how you handled that. Let's start with Alice.
Sure. Yeah, by building this job that I've created myself, I feel like an imposter constantly. I mean, I feel like an imposter sitting here right now, but I prepare myself in situations where I feel unsure of myself just by doing a lot of research ahead of time, so that I know that if I'm asking a question, it's coming from a place of knowledge. And really, I guess just a lot of prep work ahead of time to talk myself out of that self-doubt.
And Jess, how about you?
It's funny, Shelley, remember when you asked me this first, when we were talking before this, I was like, well, this isn't a woman thing. This is like my whole industry thing. I didn't know. Because like in the arts, everything is imposter syndrome, because it's like the measure of good or bad. And what we do as an artist is not real. It's like kick the can. Who knows? Like what makes you good or bad? And so imposter syndrome just becomes a part of everything. And so like, the nice thing, I suppose, is like you, Alice, like I definitely feel like that every day. I was walking down to go to the grocery store the other day, and someone who's helping us was like, what's your run rate? And I was like, texting my co-founder because I realized I had no idea what a run rate was. And I was so embarrassed. And I was like, can I even lead the ship? But I, same as you, right? Like, you know what I did after that happened? I found out what a run rate was, and then I sat down and like spent a ton of time researching every other metric and like term that I need to know as a CEO when we go into like these meetings with lawyers and investors and stuff. So like all the research, memorizing a lot of things.
Oh my. I know, Jess, you had talked before about, going into a room full of strangers with all this, some fancy party or something, I believe, with all these important people that you didn't know, and you were a little intimidated. But what strategy did you use to feel more comfortable in that situation?
It's like the exact same thing. The knowledge is power, right? Whenever I feel like an imposter, I arm myself with knowledge. And what Shelley's talking about is my second professional job, which was when I was in college still. I was at the Berkshire Theater, now Berkshire Theater Group, but Berkshire Theater Festival as an apprentice. And we got to go to the opening nights, which were full of very fancy Broadway people. And I was like, I'm like 22 and I don't know what I'm doing. So I just took the programs for the shows and I memorized everybody's bios and figured out who I knew that they knew, so that I could just like walk up to them at the opening night party and be like, I loved you in this. Hey, by the way, I know that you take tap class with like this person. And it worked, I got to have really cool conversations and kind of looked like I deserved to be there.
Oh, that's wonderful. So knowledge is king and queen, right? All right. So Helen, I have to I have to say that I have some basketball teammates and coaches who are on here who are giving you the shout out. So let's see, let's see some of the questions that they have. Reba's on. She said, looking back, I guess this is addressed to everybody. Looking back, would any of you have done anything different? And Helen's good to see you. Reba says hi.
Hi, Reba. For me personally, I don't think I would have done anything differently at the beginning of my career, because each of the things that I did, each job I had, whether it be teaching, it was playing basketball, helped me build on success later on in my life. And those experiences were so valuable. So early in my career, no, I wouldn't have done anything differently. Looking back, I probably would have stayed in the Army maybe another 3 to 5 years because I really missed it after I got out. But that's probably all I would have done. And I would have taken better care of my health. You know, I never had time to take care of my health. I didn't eat right. I didn't get enough sleep. I just pretty much ran myself into the ground. And looking back on it, now that I'm in my late 60s, it's probably not a good thing to do, to live your life when you're younger like that.
Yeah, yeah. And self-care is an important thing to be aware of, certainly. And as leaders, how do you accomplish it? I mean, Helen said she didn't. So yay, Helen, or at least during that time frame.
I demanded it of my subordinates.
Okay. So how about the Jess and Alice? Did you take care of yourself? You hiked, Alice, right?
Fail.
Yeah, it took me a year to get over my injuries from that, but it was good. So I mean, I'm sure Jess will say the same thing. When you're running a business, it is pretty hard to take care of yourself. There's so much to do, but I try to read. I try to limit my reading to non-business books as possible, and read things I actually enjoy reading. And I'm a cross stitcher. I like to craft. So that's my form of self-care. But that's that question earlier about if you change anything. This is the kind of a women focused panel. Back in 1992, when I entered SMS, I'd never considered getting a computer science degree. And I kind of wish I had thought about that, because girls just didn't do that back then. It was just the nerdiest thing in the world. And now it's really cool to get a computer science degree. But I think I would have been a pretty good coder. So that is maybe one thing I would have changed.
I have to tell you all that we just hired like a technology fellow for the spring, which is what we call an intern because we pay them. And she was telling us her story. She's Puerto Rican and she is dual majoring in theater and computer science. And I literally tried not to cry while we were interviewing her, because I was like, this is the new world. It's amazing. It's just incredible.
Oh, that's fabulous.
That's wonderful.
Okay, so one of the questions that came in for all the guests: who are influential women in your lives? That could be in college or it could be now. So whoever wants to jump on that one first.
The women that influenced me, put it in two parts. The first part, pre-Army, there was a group of women coaches at Missouri State when I started there. And when I first got there, I had never seen a woman coach before. All the coaches where I was from were all men. I didn't even know it was an option until I got to Missouri State. And we had a group of just awesome women that were coaches. We had the basketball coach, Reba Sims, the volleyball coach, Linda Dollar, softball coach, Kay Hunter, and the hockey coach, field hockey coach, Rhonda Reidinger. And they absolutely influenced me to believe in myself, knowing that I could do whatever I wanted to do. I could be anything I wanted to do. These women were smart, they were competent, and they were great role models for all the women in the women's athletic department. The second part of that, in the Army, there were no women when I first got into the Army. There were 300 general officers, 2 of which were women. And so I didn't even see senior leaders in the Army until I got further along in my career. But I worked for a 3-star admiral. It was the first female 3-star admiral in the Navy. Her name was Vice Admiral Pat Tracy, and she was just awesome. What she taught me was you have to be tough, but you have to be competent. And she was just awesome. She was difficult to work with or work for, but she was the smartest woman or smartest person I'd never ever met. She really was. And so those 2 groups of women really influenced me.
Oh, how about the others? Any other?
Yeah, I was just thinking recently about like some of my mentors from college who happened to be women also, which were sort of a lot in the dance department. So Cheryl Miller and Dee Dee Sant, they still continue to be my mentors to this. They're friends now, of course, and collaborators, but they're still mentors. Like in November, I messed up my arm because I have bad, like your hiking injuries, bad dance injuries from my dance career. And the first thing I did was call Cheryl, and Cheryl helped me for 3 weeks, like, cause she's trained in PT as well and Pilates, of like how to figure out how to help. That there was like debilitating problem, and they're still the first women I call. I went to Atlanta last fall to try to work on a PNL with Dee Dee. Like, I'm just so grateful for those women continuing to be in my life.
So mentorship is really key with women, yes? And yeah. So do you all mentor other women?
I did when I was in the Army. The Army has a very robust mentorship program, both informal and formal. But there were several jobs that I had women that were subordinates that would come to me for advice in really kind of informal mentoring. The last command that I worked at, we had a formal mentoring program, and we checked progress, and we had certain goals that they had to meet, and people had to sign up to be a mentor, and then we would try to pair them up with the proper mentor. But it was a good program, and I thought it was worthwhile.
Mhm. Mhm. Great. Okay. Another question that's come in. You are all so driven and curious and active. How do you define success? So let's give that one first to Jess.
Oh man. Do you think that maybe a part of being a great leader is like the definition of success is purposefully a little fuzzy, so you can always feel like you're
There.
you're doing it. You're doing the right thing. I feel like that might actually be, yeah, I don't know. For me, it just feels like I am not a big, I think, I don't remember who said it, was Helen or Alice, but like failure is not a huge part of my life because always informs like whatever it is that I'm doing next. So ultimately for me, success means, am I moving forward a little bit, I say in the summers when I go work with teenagers, a little better each time, a little better every day feels like success for me.
Oh, that's great. How about the others?
I agree with that. It seems like one of the unfortunate parts of finding success is learning from your mistakes. So, one step back, two steps forward. But I think as long as you're moving forward, and that defines success for me. And just to back up 1 second, I would like to say that Tammy Yankee was a great mentor for me when I was at SMS, and I know she continues to be a force of nature there at Missouri State. So she was my first chemistry professor, and then she became department head, and then now she's dean, and this great mentor and woman and person.
That's fabulous that you all are still connected with your mentors. I mean, a mentorship is not just like for a really short period of time. A lot of times it's a lifetime, and that's pretty amazing. So, all right, so we are getting close to winding down. So now I'm going to kind of ask you, what advice would you have for your younger selves, or any final thoughts that you want to share with women out there in regards to leadership or related? Let's start with, looks like Helen's connecting. Okay, let's go ahead and go to Alice.
Sure. Yeah. I guess some advice I would give to my younger self is to be a little more deliberative in my decision making, take a step back, slow down, think about what I'm doing. And that's still actually my advice to myself today. I always just want to plow forward and just get things done. But I'm learning to slow down, plan that it's equally important, maybe even as much time to plan as implement. And so I think that's really important for people as they're, even deciding what major to be, to change their major or make a career leap. So that would be my advice.
All right. Helen, were you on? Did you hear the question about what advice would you have for your younger selves, or any final thoughts that you want to share for women?
For my younger self, I would say be a better student, take learning seriously. As I said earlier, I was pretty much a knucklehead for the first 2 years of my college career. And I didn't care about grades. I didn't care whether I went to class. All I cared about was playing basketball. I woke up when I was a junior and thought, oh man, I'm going to have to be able to know this stuff. So that would be the number one thing, is to be a better student. I was not like the other two that had these great scholarships. I was hanging on by my fingernails in school, but once I figured out that I needed to take it seriously, I became a good student. And when in the Army, you're constantly going to classes, you're constantly trying to learn things, and you have to take it seriously. So that would be the number one thing I would tell myself, and also to take better care of my health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know before we go to Jess, I know that Helen, you had gone later to National War College.
I did.
And so that's how did that work? With that kind of crazy schedule, how did that work to be able to pursue that advanced degree?
I was a full-time student at the National War College.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my job in the Army. I didn't do any of the other jobs. I just was a full-time student. And when I graduated from there, I graduated in 2001. And we were all awarded a master's degree in national security strategy. So, and I was in there with people from the State Department, people from the CIA, really all branches of the government, U.S. government.
Wow. Wow. I know Colin Powell had gone there. There's
Yeah,
some
he did.
pretty amazing alums who attended that. So you too
There
are a
were.
sharp cookie.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Jess, so let's go ahead and have you, that advice for your younger self, and any final thoughts you want to share.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I think that I wouldn't give my younger self, her advice so much as like a break and sort of some reassurance that, like, I have always pursued my own path and marched to like a vision that most people have never seen, and as I went through my life as a younger woman and not feeling confident in my leadership, as people questioned what I was and tried to tell me what I did, or what I was supposed to do, I literally one Thanksgiving listened to my family outside the window, not realizing I was still awake, talking about how I was going to have to like do something else soon. Like I couldn't do this forever. I would just give her a break, and say like, you did it right. You kept listening and working hard and looking around and taking the clues and piecing it together and stayed happy, and fulfilled. And it does work out to follow your own vision. All those moments of like, crying and feeling really unconfident about what I was doing. and worried and all of that stuff, I just give her a little break. And I think that's probably the exact same advice I'd give to anyone else listening.
Yeah, yeah. And follow your own passion. Don't live somebody else's life or what they think your life should be.
Yeah.
You know, there's only one of these. We only get one of these. So
Yeah.
make it what you're passionate about. So, well, thank you. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, our presenters and those who have tuned in. We hope that you enjoyed what you heard today and are leaving feeling inspired by these three women who rock. If you have suggestions on topics or alumni speakers, please include them on the survey that you'll be receiving tomorrow in your follow-up email. Our next Bear Talks webinar will be on Tuesday, April 13th from noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. And our topic will be event planning big car behind me. Event planning in a virtual world. So thank you all for being part of today's presentation and have a great afternoon. And we're all going to sign off now. So
Hey, thanks, Shelley.
Thank you.
thank you. It was awesome. You guys are
Enjoyed
great.
it.